Hey guys, again, sorry I couldn't be there, but yeah, you guys know the situation we're in. Now, we've got a couple days here. My intention was to teach you kind of a quick little thing on something I would call inheritance and composition. It's two object-oriented concepts that allow you to build an object and then use the object to help build other objects. For instance, let's say you were making a car, okay? And every car needs an engine. Now, a car and an engine are two completely separate objects, but you can't build a car without an engine. So, what we can do is code the engine and put that as an attribute to the car. That is something called composition. A car has a engine. Anytime you can put those has a words between two objects, then you have this compositional relationship. You'll probably run into it while you're making your own games. For instance, the game of Pong has paddles and it has a ball, or you could say something like a spaceship has blasters, so it might have rockets or something like that. It all depends on what you're making and how you're going to make it. A whack-a-mole board has moles, so you can hit them with the mallet or whatever it may be. So you've got all sorts of options when it comes to composition, and it's by far the easier operation to deal with, and it's something I'm going to deal with in this demo that I'm about to give you. The other one is something called inheritance, where you have this is-a relationship, where you build a very generic object and then you build something more specific based on those simple instructions. Something like a student is a person. You would first create the person and then make them into a student. So everything that a student is also a person. And so you can code out the person class with things like attributes like name, age, height, weight, whatever you want. And then a student would have things like attributes like grade and GPA and a schedule, but they would also have all the same attributes as a person: name, age, weight, height, so on and so forth. All students are people, but not all people are students. So that's kind of how it works. It's the same thing almost genetically. Like you inherit a lot of information from your parents, and your parents inherit a lot of information from their parents, and so on and so forth. But you're not there unless your parent is there. Your parent doesn't necessarily know, the parent doesn't necessarily know that the subclass, the inherited piece, exists, but the subclass always knows that the superclass is there. It's what we call them, subclasses and superclasses. I'm not going to get into greater detail with that, to be perfectly honest with you. It is a bit of an advanced concept. If we had more time, if this was a normal school year, yes, we would dive into it. We'd have some labs and things like that. And it really is quite helpful when you're building more complex pieces. But considering the year that we've had and what we're about to go through, I think it's wise just to kind of tone it down, maybe skip it. It is something you will all see and have in more advanced, more other computer science classes if it is something you choose to pursue. It is a major focus point in APCSA. So if you're young enough, if you're a freshman through junior and you want to take APCSA next year or in the following years, yes, it's something that we focus on heavily. But for this year, for this class, it's not something we have to do, nor is it something you have to include in your final project. So it's nice to have in the back pocket, but it's not necessary. So my goal is to kind of show off how to go through the game making process from start to finish, okay, at least the coding aspect of it. There's also another aspect, the planning aspect, which you're going to have to do. I'll show you how to fill those sheets out a little bit later. But for right now, I thought we would just spend some time coding these next few days throughout this week, and we're going to code the game of Snake. And so we're going to break that down into 3 different files. We're going to break it down into the body part, the snake, and then the little mouse that it might eat, the little bug that it might eat to grow. So we'll break those down, and we'll do one a day, essentially. And my goal is for me to show you the video and you to code with the video. So I will ask you to kind of pause the video at certain points of time and code out certain things, make sure it's running correctly, make sure it's built right, and then we'll kind of go back through all of it as we go. So let's jump into it. I already have a project made here called the Snake Game. Actually, before I start, let me show you what this is supposed to look like today. So when it's all said and done, this is what it's going to look like. We're going to have a snake rolling around the screen. Let's see if I can grab this. Okay. And the little blue dot is the simulated mouse that it's eating. And every time it eats, it grows one body part bigger. You're going to notice the orange square is kind of the head of the snake. The green squares are the tail. Now, I cannot run into a wall, nor can I run into myself. Otherwise, I will die. Okay? And that's kind of the idea. If I were to hit the wall, it also crashes and dies as well. Now, our goal today would be to create something like this, where it is just simply the body part moving around the screen, and I'm controlling it with the up, down, left, and right arrow keys, okay? It will go off the screen, I'm not worried about that, and I can kind of pass back through myself. But that is the intended goal today, is just to make a square float around the screen. So let's get this started. I've already made a new project in PyCharm. That's going to be the first thing that you want to do. Now I'm going to steal a graphics library, a graphics Python file from one of my other projects. Now there is an update to the graphics library if you want that deals with right and left mouse clicks, but if that's not something you're going to use, then it's not something you have to download. So let's see, I'm going to paste this right in here. No, I don't need to open an editor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to right click, I'm going to create a new Python file, and I'm going to call it a body part. Okay? That is the file that I'm going to make. Python is going to be called a body part. So go ahead and save your Python file or create a new one as a body part. If you're using idle, just do a quick save as and call it a body part for the time being so that you can import things appropriately. So there we go. I've got that. Zoom in for us a little bit here so we can see things a little better. All right, so all classes are going to begin with or at least I should say we're going to begin with our import statement. So from graphics import star. Okay, so go ahead, you're coding along with me. Pause the video if you're not quite set up yet, but get yourself set up. I've got that. I'm going to create my class. I'm going to call it a body part. Now the file and the class name do not have to be the same. I'm going to do that. Okay. Now inside the class, we have to make our constructor. This is the first thing that we always make, underscore, underscore, init, underscore, underscore. And I'm going to kind of walk you through how I have this set up. Now, when I create a body part, since I have to think about the game overall, I want to be able to create them in certain locations. So I need an X and a Y coordinate. Now, this X and Y coordinate are going to be the top left corners of each one of the squares that are in the snake. Okay? That is the top left corner. I'm also going to have some other attributes that I'm going to default so that I don't have to continually pass them information unless I want to pass them different information. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to default a size attribute. This is going to be the width and the height of the body part. I'm going to set it to 20 pixels. I could make it larger. I could make it smaller. It all depends on how you want the game to play. I'm also going to default a color for it. Okay, now I have a very nice color picked out. So I'm going to go color underscore RGB. I'm going to make it a 153, 255, 51. This is that light green that you saw in that color. Now, the reason I want the color in there is because I do want to create another body part that isn't that color, and that's going to be the head. So I will change that color, but for the most part, it's going to be exactly that color. That's that light green. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pass in a direction. Every body part knows what direction it's currently traveling in. It could be up, down, left, right, which I like to call north, south, east, west. That's just the way I like to do it. I like to use cardinal directions. I'm going to make the first direction equal to north, capital N. Okay. So this is my constructor. It's going to help me build the body part. Now it's time to set up the attributes. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go self dot underscore underscore x. Now I am going to make these body parts private, not because I think I'm going to mess with it or do anything with it illegal, but when I do start making other things like the snake and the mouse and all of the game itself, I don't want to accidentally change the coordinate just by happenstance. This prevents me from making those simple mistakes. So by making it private, it's going to help me out a lot. So I'm going to go self.x is x. I'm going to go self.y equals y. Self.size equals size. And self.direction. And a couple other things. I'm going to go self.color. Now, I don't care for this to be private because if I were to change the color of the body part, it's not going to change anything whatsoever about this project. So I'm just going to go self.color as color. And I'm going to go self.body. This is going to be the actual rectangle that I use. And what that's going to look like is this right here. And I'm just going to copy and paste that in so that I don't mess it up while typing. And it's going to be a rectangle from self.x, self.y to self.x plus size, self.y plus size. It's going to put its lower right corner exactly where I need it to be. So go ahead, pause the video, make sure you've got this typed in there for yourself. And when you're ready, go ahead, unpause, and we'll move on. You guys know the second thing we always make is going to be our two-string method. This helps us debug everything. Okay, so there's that. And my my two-string method, really the only thing that I'm worried about now, I could print out every single attribute, but the only ones that I'm really all that worried about are the locations of the body parts. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to say BP location, and actually let me write this a little differently. Let's go F string. I'm going to say BP location, and I'm going to put it in parentheses self dot underscore underscore x, comma, self dot underscore underscore. Okay. Well, that's going to be that. I don't even really need the variable. I could just return it, but you guys get the gist, and that's how it's going to work. So once that's all said and done, we can start making body parts and seeing that things are working appropriately and doing what we need. Okay. But we're going to just move on a little bit here and kind of keep this video short and concise. So go ahead, pause it again. Make sure you've got that two-string method in there and unpause it when you're ready to go. Now, since all of my attributes are private, I would like to have access to them just in case I need them. So I'm going to create something called a bunch of get methods, and that's just simply going to return the value of the attribute in case I need it for anything down the road. Those are going to look relatively simple. They're all going to look relatively the exact same way. I'm going to put them all right here. It is just going to be def get x, which returns self.x, delf get y, which returns self.y, def get direction, which returns self.direction, and def get size, which returns the size. Again, pause it, put those methods in there, and unpause it when you're ready to go. All right, now that you've got those coded, these methods really do just do that. They return the values just so that I can access them if I ever need them for anything in particular moving further down the road. The big thing that I need to be able to do with this project is draw the body part and move the body part. So let's get that straightened away right here. That's going to be the biggest part to this. So first thing I'm going to do, if I can't see it, I can't move it. So we're going to go def draw. Okay. And in order to draw something, I need a window to draw it into. It's going to be a GraphWin object. Okay. Let's put in a doc string for this one. It's going to draw a body part. Okay. Now, that's going to be pretty simple. All it's going to do is set the color of the rectangle that we had listed above. Remember, the rectangle was called body. Okay. And it's going to draw it to the window. Self.body.setFill. And we're going to set it to self.color. Remember, we already had that nice green color picked out for ourselves. We're going to go self.body.draw to the window. That is all that one's going to do. So again, you can pause it, make sure that that method is in there and it's working. All right, at this point in time, we can probably start making an object and seeing what it does. So let's come down here, we'll make a main method, okay, just to test things out and see that it's working appropriately. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go with a Control J in PyCharm. I'm going to look down to main, if main is main, and I'm going to start coding out some things for myself right in here. So right here, I'm going to create a window, which is a GraphWin object. I'm going to make it my test window. I'm going to make it 600 by 600. Okay. I'm going to create a body part. I'm just going to call it BP equals a body part. And my body part needs a position. Let's say I just put it at 200, 300 to begin with. Now remember, all the other values were defaulted, so I don't have to pass them any values. And I'm simply going to draw it. BP draw window. I'm going to do my win.getMouse and a win.close, and that'll hold it open for me. So let's go ahead and run this and see that it's working. So we'll run body part. And there it is. I see a body part. Everything's working appropriately. If I wanted to, I can print the body part just to see that everything is in the right spot. But essentially, I know it's working and everything should be good to go. All right, now the last thing, making it move. That's the most important part. Now, let's go through this line by line and see where it puts us. So I'm going to move this all down a little bit. I'm going to go def move, okay? I'm going to pass in a direction. reason I want to pass in a direction to the move method is because I may want to change the direction in which it's moving. Okay, I know the direction that it's already moving in because self.direction is going to hold on to that information for me. So we'll always move in the direction that it's currently heading, unless, of course, I update it and change it. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say self.direction equals direction. What does that do? It updates the attribute with the value that's passed into this function. Now, once I have the attribute updated, I need to figure out which way it's supposed to head. So if it's facing north, I want it to go up. If it's facing east, I want it to go right. If it's facing south, I want it to go down, west to the left, and so on and so forth. So here's what we have. I'm going to say if, okay, self.direction is equal to north. What I want to do is take the body part and move it straight up. So here's how I'm going to do that. I'm going to say self.body.move. This is the move method for a rectangle. Okay? And I don't want to move it left or right any, but I want to move it in the opposite direction of its size. So every time that it moves up by however big it is. So if it's 20 pixels, it's going to move 20 pixels up and 20 pixels up and 20 pixels up. That'll give it that nice kind of flow as it works its way through. It's not like a consistent move, but more of a jump and a jump and a jump. And then you'll see when we start putting the body parts together, it's going to come together very, very nicely. So since I have that size attribute, what I want to do is I want to make sure that it moves up. So I want it to move negatively. So I'm going to go -1 times whatever the size is. Okay, so there we are. And what I need to do is also adjust the y coordinate to be in the right position, because eventually I'm going to have to match up that y coordinate and x coordinate to places in the window to see if it crashed, if it ate itself, or if it ate a mouse. So I got to make sure I consistently update those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go self.y minus equals self.size. That will allow me to decrease the y coordinate by the same amount that it already moved. So that'll get that done, and the other movements are essentially the same. We're going to go elif, okay? And I might say something like self.direction equals, what do I want? South. Let's go the opposite direction. I'm going to do essentially the same thing. Self.body.move. And instead of going, we're not going to go right or left, but instead of going up, we're going to go down. So we're just going to move whatever self.size is. Positive number, so it should then move it down. And we're going to say self.y equals self.size. The west and east are essentially the same, so I'm going to copy those in there, save ourselves some time. And so here's what happens. If I say self.direction is west, which means it's going to move to the left, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the body to the left based on size and not up and down any. I'm going to take the x value and subtract whatever self.size is. If it's not north, if it's not south, if it's not west, then it must be east. So I'm going to move the body to the right based on size, and I'm going to take my x coordinate and increase it by size. Okay? So that's all said and done. We have a body part that can move and do different things. We can test this out if we want. So if we want, we can say something like, let's just go with bp.move, and we can tell it what direction to move in. So if I told it north, it would then go north. Now the only thing is when I run this, you're not going to see it. So let's say I do a win.getMouse real quick. That way you can see it kind of jump when I click. So watch, I'm going to click in the window and the body part move north. So I know this function is working appropriately. If I were to tell it to move east, okay, I could run it. And if I click, you'll see the body part move to the right, 20 pixels. And you can trust me that the west and the south work as well. Now, obviously, I don't want to keep clicking. I'd like to be able to just have the body part move on its own and update its direction appropriately. So either move it to the right or to the left, depending on what I want to do. So let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of both of these, and let's figure out a way to do this. Now, I have to get information from the keyboard and translate it into something the computer can do. Let me do this real quick, though. I'm sure some of you need an opportunity to copy this down. So go ahead, pause the video, copy that method down. All right, now that it's you've got that copied down, let's get into how we can update the move. Now, I'm going to come out of the class because what I'm about to do has nothing to do with a body part whatsoever. What I'm about to do is going to take information from the keyboard and translate it into something the body part knows how to deal with. I'm going to create a function, not a method, a function outside of the class. Def get direction. Okay? And what this is going to do is allow me to grab information from the keyboard and translate it into something that the snake can deal with. So what I'm going to use in this function is I need a window. Okay? That way I can get information from the keyboard. And I'm also going to pass in the current direction of the snake because I need to return a north, south, east, or west. And if I don't press something on the keyboard, I need to return which direction the snake is currently heading because this move method always needs an updated direction for it. So let's do this. This is going to get a key from the keyboard, from the directional arrows, and translate it to a direction. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna get a key from the keyboard. Key equal win dot check key. Okay. Now I'm gonna use a check key here, not a get key, because I don't want the program to pause. Check key will return one of two things. It'll return the key that you pressed, or it'll return the value of none. Okay. What we want to make sure is that it returns the value that we pressed when we want to press it. And if we don't press anything, it still gives us something. It just doesn't pause the program. Now, this does return a string, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to a lowercase letter so I know what I'm working with. Up could be spelled UP, uppercase U, lowercase p, uppercase U, uppercase p. Part of it depends on your system, part of it depends on the library. So I'm just going to change the string to lowercase letters so I don't have to deal with it. Now, if the key is equal to the word up, okay, I want to return the letter N. And if the key is equal to down, guess what? I want to return self. Now, if the key equals left, I want to return west. Now, if key equals right, I want to return east. Now you're thinking, why didn't I use an else there? There's only 4 buttons. Well, the trick is I want to return one of those things if it's up, down, left, or right. But there's a possibility that the key I pressed or didn't press was not up, down, left, or right. It could also be the value of none. So that's where I'm going to say the else. If it's anything other than up, down, left, and right, I want to return the current direction. Okay? And that's going to be the direction the snake body part is already heading in. That way it continues to head in that direction. All right, so go ahead, pause the video, get that function in there. Please, please, please make sure that it is not in your class. See how this is left aligned right up against the left-hand side? It's not in the class. It's not tabbed over appropriately. So pause the video, get that function in there as well. It's a function we'll be using a lot. All right, now that you're back, let's put it into play. So here's what we need to do. We're going to create a loop. Now that it's drawn, we're going to create a loop, and we're just testing it. So it's not like the game or anything, but I might say something like while not when dot closed. Okay, while the window is open, I'm going to get a direction from the keyboard. Remember, this is a return method, so we're going to use it in the sense of something greater. And what I'm going to do is pass in a window object, which I have, and I'm going to pass in the current direction of the snake. And this is why we wrote those get methods, because we can't use self.direction here. So I'm going to go bp.get direction, and that will get the current direction from the snake body part. What we're going to do is go bp, which is my snake body part. I'm going to say move. Okay. Now the move method requires that I pass in the direction that I'd like it to move, which I have just found from the keyboard. And I'm going to put in a sleep function, something simple. Time.sleep. I'll put in something like a point. Okay. Go ahead and run it. Let's see where it takes us. And there's my body part. And when I press right, left, up, down, it seems to move appropriately. Yes, it goes off screen. Okay. But remember, we didn't code in any kind of collision detection yet, so don't worry about that. We'll get to that part when we start dealing with the snake. Okay. But essentially, I have a body part there. It works just fine, and that's what I want to see out of this. So your goal right now, if you haven't been following along with the code, is to go back through this video, pause it when I said to pause it, and copy down the code that I've given you. I want you to upload your code, your completed code of this project to the assignment that this video is currently held in. So do that now. Tomorrow, okay, your goal would be to work on the snake itself. So there will be another video. So go ahead, finish that up. Let's get that all put together. And this is your first kind of step towards building a game. We'll see you tomorrow.